We be live.
And we're live.
We're live. Hey everyone. Today we're having multiple difficulties. Susie is not feeling very well, and I'm having computer issues, and that's why I am on my phone today. So the stars are aligning to make this difficult, but we didn't give up on you. We're still here to answer
Pulling
Patreon
through.
questions. Yes. So, but bear with us as we figure this out because today is just like not one of those days that the stream is supposed to. If this stream goes well, I would be very surprised. That's just, let me just tell you that. Okay. So, today we're going to answer Patreon questions. YouTube members, because of my computer issues, we wouldn't be able to bring YouTube members up today. But next week, when we do their Q&A, we will have both. We will answer Patreon questions, and YouTube members get to come live on air and talk to us. But Patreon questions today only. Um, yeah. So again, if you want to, if you want to be a YouTube member, don't. Sorry about today, but usually we had a new YouTube member, right? Usually YouTube
Yes.
members, yeah.
Before
So
we
sorry.
joined the before we went live,
Yes,
Kanu Kanu
can
Sapak became a YouTube member. Thank
yes.
you for joining Satan's Minions.
Yes, but don't don't cancel your membership. I promise next week. Well, I promise as long as my computer issues are fixed, YouTube members we will have that section back on where they could come and talk to us later. So that's the difference between being a patron. Patrons send their questions before we go live, so me and Susanna answer them. But people who prefer to just come and have a discussions live on air, they become YouTube members. So that's the difference between the benefits. And also, I don't have my notes typey thingy, so that's why I have paper and pen for to if I need to. The purpose of the paper and pen is for me to interrupt Susie less. Okay, so I've noticed whenever I have somewhere where I can write my thoughts, I would be able to. It stops me from interrupting people because when I want to say something, I'm like, I need to say it right now, but I'll just write it down so I can say it later. Anyway, oh my god, somebody is saying fine. Wait, you're not even a member. Why are you complaining? Why is person Susie? Why is this person complaining? This person is not even a member. Only YouTube
I don't
members
know.
become a member if you can. All right, let's get to the questions. We have a lot of questions. God damn.
We do have a lot of questions today.
Oh my
Um,
god.
so let's just start going through them. Um,
Okay.
First question is from Gasian American. What are your thoughts on the 996 work culture of Chinese companies, which means 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. each day, 6 days a week? Should solutions come from labor unions, competitions with worker co ops, or, of course, Supreme Daddy Xi Jinping?
Yeah, I mean, like I think everybody knows now that studies show that just adding the hours doesn't make you give you results, right? Like people are actually even experimenting with less work days, not more work days, right?
I
Like,
think that would make
isn't
people more productive.
yeah. Like trying to get more hours, like that's a myth now. That like, oh, just like I think this has been something that people have already known for so long, and it's it's just weird that companies haven't caught up to it, given how much the studies shows that less hours doesn't necessarily mean less work. In fact, happier employers means happy employees means more productive employees. So how do we fix that? So here's the thing: as somebody who's a capitalist, I actually think unions are a key part of negotiation tactics, right? You know what I mean? Like there's like a lot of people think like free market capitalists like me would be against unions, but unions just increase your negotiating power within, so like you would want big companies to have to face um have to, when they have such high negotiating power, whoever is on the labor side is not going to, so higher competition requires both sides of the negotiating table to have relevantly equal say within the negotiation, right? And if one side is a giant company and the other side are individual workers, that negotiation power is very much one-sided. So if you want to get more nothing within an understanding of free market capital
Uh,
and creating a union. Did you hear me? I saw myself getting cut for a second. Am I back?
yeah, you were gone for a second, but you're back now.
Yeah. So in fact, if you are for free markets means that workers have the freedom to talk to each other and create unions, right? It would be an anti-free market attitude to be anti-union because you would basically stopping the free union of workers together, so for them to increase their negotiating power. So they're not at all in contradiction. So when you say should the solution comes from labor unions, competition with worker co-ops, worker co here's the thing. We don't know which one of these are the best solutions. Worker co-ops, unions. Um, one of the main solutions is for companies to compete with each other over skilled labor, right? And skilled labor being able to choose their employers freely, without any barriers, would require companies to provide better perks to their employees and therefore create better conditions for their workers, including less work hours. Anyways, that was a long answer to a simple question. Does that make any sense what I said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think I answered this question for longer than I should have, but that was the right answer. Any other answer is wrong. Anybody else that thinks that there's a way that you could that you could come out and anyways, I'm not going to go into it because I could speak about this for hours, but I know like most people are not interested in this economic stuff. But so let's go to the next test. By the way, this is my degree. Like most of the questions that I answer are not even about the stuff that I'm supposed to that I have a degree in. So but this is why I get excited when somebody asks me about like markets or the economy. But anyways, I know most people will get bored, so let's just move
Okay.
on.
Um, wait, let's pull up another question. Okay. Oh, juicy question from Higgs Boson. What what's your opinion on private police? Should law and order always be part of the state?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
in an ideal world, the state should have a monopoly on violence and except under extreme
Unless
circumstance. And there should be many checks and balances and consequences for the misuse of that violence. How does that sound?
what about that sounds pretty good, except what about private security? Monopoly, like for example, let's say you're a department store and you have private security. Would they not be able to like I don't know. No, violence, I'm talking not about like I'm just talking about physically restraining somebody, not like shooting them or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Shouldn't they be able to like if somebody is stealing their products, shouldn't they be able to use some violence?
Yeah, no,
Shouldn't
I
be able
said
to
in
put
a
their hand.
perfect world. That's not the world we live
Yeah.
in. So,
Well, in a
uh,
perfect world, we wouldn't need any violence, including state violence.
you raise a good point. Um, I don't have a problem with uh private security. I mean, I need it. I live in a city that needs it very badly. So I'd be ridiculous to think otherwise. But I just think about these instances, in these societies where, it's basically like a collapsed state where these private security companies basically become like their own police forces. Like when things evolve to that level, things get very dicey, I think. Um, but in terms of just like, oh, we want a store that yeah, have some security people. That's, I feel like, a much lower level.
Mm. Well, we could define what the difference between police and private security is that the domain of private security is on the area that is owned privately by somebody, right? So, for
Yes, of
example, your
course.
home, your department store, okay, and let's define the police as any force that can use violence to provide security in public areas and private areas, right? Like didn't everywhere. Okay.
Mhm.
And if we define police like that, and if we separate police from private security in that way, then yes, the police should only, only be done by the state. Like that should never be privatized. Prisons should never be privatized. Police should never be privatized. Nothing, no part of anything that has to do with justice or law, well, I mean, with deciding, with executing the law, right, or upholding justice, that should all be ultimately done by the state, right? So, I mean, yeah, maybe I actually take that back because you can hire private lawyers, right? Never mind. But the police, obviously, I mean, it's obvious. Okay, so for example, it's obvious if the police system and the prisons is obviously, if any of that are privatized, you could see how you would have different standards of the law by different people based on how rich they are. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the execution, if all of it is privatized, then you will have mm, for different tiers of citizenship. The law will apply differently to different types of citizens depending on how much access to capital they have, right? I mean, even the fact that hiring private lawyers requires um, money, and different people have different levels of access to capital. That already creates a multi-tier system within the justice system, right? So that's already doing that. If you add the police and the prison system into that, that will make it a lot worse. Also, it will completely um, the profit motive is really effective at creating things efficiently. Okay, but it's really horrible for the justice system because if you introduce the profits motive to the justice system and to policing and to prison, then um, then the ultimate goal would not be a reduction of crime. All right. When the ultimate goal, everything that is private, the ultimate goal is the increase of profit. And if the increase of profit comes, if the at the expense of more crime, then we will go with more crime. Like it's so obvious that if the prison system is privatized, now we have a major industry that is within its interest to make things that criminal that are not necessarily criminal. And also imagine if the police system was private, right? Then the motivation would be more unjustified arrests, more oppression on people that the police system knows that they're not going to be that much of a backlash. Like it's an absolute nightmare. Like it's obvious that why certain things should always just remain within the hand of the state. But the difference between a free market capital, like people like me who are capitalists, and people who are maybe would describe themselves as socialists, is not that certain things shouldn't be in the hands of the government. I mean, everybody understands that there's certain industries that should only be within the hands of the state. The only disagreements are which ones, right? So I, as a capitalist, understand that just the courts, the police, the military, the prisons, all of these should be government owned and only government owned, and it shouldn't be privatized. But a socialist would probably agree as well, but they will go further, right? Like they might want the healthcare system to be also completely government owned, or the education system to also be government owned. And somebody like me would be like, no, those should be private or partly public, partly private. But even if it's private, I would argue that the government should still be involved in subsidizing education and healthcare because the private market is blind to certain positive externalities of the education system and healthcare system, right? So even if it's private, that doesn't mean the government shouldn't be involved in it. Anyways, that's too long of an answer. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Ooh, Armin will love taking this question. Okay, Higgs Boson is asking, why do you think the GOP is dangerous, and is the GOP's approach to foreign policy too different than the Democrats' policy? I think this is coming up because you said the Republican Party is evil last week.
The Republican Party is evil, is a force of evil, right? I mean, the number, like, there are many things on that where you could point to make this point. You know, like, there's so many things. I don't even know where to start. But I think you only need to focus, even if everything else about them was fine, like even if you ignored women's rights and gay rights, the attack on democracy, the government spending, like this is supposed to be the party that has lower government spending but actually has higher government spending, the horrible foreign policy that they have, the attack on the world liberal order that they have, the protectionism that they have. If you ignore all of that, which is all horrible, yeah, but even if you ignore all of that, and all of that was good, just the ignoring the threat that is climate change, okay, that by its own is enough to make them the most political party on the planet, right? But there's so much more. Like, obviously the list is big, but even if you just focus on that and everything about them was perfect, everything else about them was perfect, that alone is such a threat. What the GOP stands for on climate change, it's such a threat to human to well-being of everybody on the planet. This is not about Americans, okay? This is about the whole planet. So the GOP is a threat to the whole planet, to every single, not just human but living being, okay? And that by itself is make them a bigger threat than the BGP and CCP combined.
I totally understand your reasoning.
Say that again.
Agree. Yeah, I understand your reasoning.
Of course, it's very good reasoning. Of course, you would agree with it. I have a guest. I have a special guest.
Oh, that's what we need on a tough day like this. Oh my god. She's so cute. She's like a little baby harp seal. Just a little baby white seal. A little puppy. That's what I need. I need a dog in my life, you guys. Is she just gonna chill there? Yeah, you should just let her chill.
Just chill here. Okay.
Okay. Higgs Boson is asking, what's the current purpose of NATO expansion now that communism's influence is gone? Is it to uphold the liberal world order? Is that why traditionalists around the world hate the West and love Russia? Some big questions here.
Yeah, it's a promotion of peace. It's the more countries join NATO, the more peace we will have in the world. In fact, every goddamn country in the whole planet should join NATO, including Russia. You know what I mean? Everybody join NATO, there would be no war. So yeah, and again, it is part of upholding the world liberal order, which is a good thing, and that's why we support it. And Russia stands for exactly the opposite. Yeah, you're answering your own questions. Russia stands for traditionalism, and Russia losing this war, this not just like military war, but the narrative war, the propaganda war, is such a good symbol for the losing, the side of modernity winning and the side of traditionalism losing. You know what I mean? So the war that you're saying between Ukraine and Russia, even if Ukraine eventually gets militarily defeated, Russia has lost the propaganda war and the narrative. Um, and I think Russia, even though it's supposed to be the side of traditionalism, they have done the best job ever by to give a major boost to the side of modernity and liberalism. I think nobody has done better for reminding people around the world, because unfortunately, United States bad foreign policy has been giving liberalism a bad rep in the past couple of years, right? And it didn't seem like there would be a way to save that in the foreseeable future. But Russia, Putin, who's supposed to be on the side of traditionalism, has managed to do that by attacking Ukraine. And now, liberalism is back on demand everywhere, right? And the changes, and this is not just a small shift, like, countries like Sweden and Finland joining NATO, even if we turn back the dial and go back to like people being anti-liberal, the foundational shifts that are happening globally are impossible to undo. You know what I mean? Well, nothing is impossible, but they're hard to undo. So this is such a major win for the side of liberals around the world. Um, and yeah, it's not just NATO expansion that we are in favor of. Any institution that is upholding the world liberal order, the growth of that institution will be in our favor. You know what I mean? Including the Europe, like NATO, the European Union, the Quad, all the different institutions, any form of trade agreements between, democratic countries that enhances their economic power. United States more involvement and trade agreements in the Pacific, all of that. Any single agreement, any single military or trade agreement between uh, liberal countries is should be supported. So NATO is just falls under that category.
We should just have NATO to just be the whole globe.
Yeah, we're such liberals here, by the way, guys. Like, we are like liberals. Okay, we're not like, we're the liberals that the leftists warn you about. Okay, so a lot of people on the right confuse progressive leftists with liberals because they just call them all liberals. Okay, but we are like, me and Susie here are liberals, and we're basically hated by leftists and right-leaning people as well. Like, but you know how right-leaning people, a lot of people are like, oh my god, the world liberal order, okay, this is like, they're going to try to take over, okay, and a lot of people were like, oh my god, they are like over exaggerating things, and but we're like, no, yes, we are trying to take over. Like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing for the world to be taken over by liberalism. That would be an improvement.
The liberal world order is already here. It's been here. Okay. This question is from Gay American. What are your thoughts on President Roosevelt's extended Bill of Rights, which would include employment and adequate income for food, shelter, and recreation, farmers' rights to a fair income, freedom from unfair competition and monopoly, decent housing, adequate medical care, and social security and education? Do you think that these other things listed are rights?
Yeah, so a lot of people again think like, as somebody like me who's a free market capitalist would be against a lot of these things, but you can't uphold um, a functioning free market if you don't save the market from monopolies and industry or um,
Oh no.
every once in a while. Am I back?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So again, I was saying, as a free market capitalist, people think that I would be against, somebody like me who's a free market capitalist would be against any limitations in the market or the government getting too involved in upholding rights, right? But you're not going to have a functioning, healthy free market if you don't save the market from industry tycoons or people that you will use the freedoms from a free market as a way to take the benefits of the free market for the special elite and at the expense of the majority of the people, right? So if you don't have a government that is coming in, like if you just market just do its own thing, okay, at certain point, because the market is very effective, eventually there will be certain industries or certain people that are so rich that they're going to use their economic power to just to control the market in a way, because the government is basically taking their hands off completely, as much as they can. So essentially, you will have the industry tycoons acting like a government, okay? Because if the government is completely decentralized and is completely powerless, at some point, the centralization of power will be only economic power. So you have economic power to the max and political power completely non-existent. So it will the society will be controlled and managed by the oligarchs, right? And everybody's democracy and people's rights will be challenged because the industry tycoons will decide. They will have too much say in politics. They will have too much say in reducing competition. They'll have too much say. Like they will be so involved in politics that they could buy every politician and the police system and the law system and everything. All right. So you want a healthy free market where there's competition, but you also want the government to come and say this freedom is not absolute. The role of the government is to enter the system and they say, like, no matter how much economic power you have, there's certain rights that we will, as the government, come and guarantee to every individual. Okay, and also we will not let the efficiency of the free market centralize power economically in the hands of few so much that you could use that economic power to avoid competition, because the only way that the free market can do its job is for the competition to continue. So these laws make sense, right? If throughout history we have so many examples of too much freedom in the market, that eventually the excessive freedom eventually destroyed democracy and destroyed freedom for the majority. Too much freedom means that freedom will be eventually at the only given to the people that have the economic power, because the high economic power, because the economic power will be used to take the freedom away from the people that don't have enough capital to guarantee that freedom for themselves, right? So there is such a thing as too much freedom. And rights, by the way, having rights is a contradiction to having freedom, because people are like, I want freedom and I want maximum freedom and I want maximum rights. You can't have both, because to have rights means to limit other people's ability to do certain things, right? So having rights comes in contradiction of having freedom. So you have to find a balance, right? And I think these are, as you see right now, as how the way United States turned out, you can see that these United States for a while has been able to come up with the right balance of freedoms and rights. But one thing that there's this myth that this is how, once you achieve this balance, this is how, like, things are just constantly going to get better. But what people don't understand is that this is a balance that you could really easily get off of, right? Like, United States is the world superpower because it got this balance right for a very long time, but people are become too complacent because they think that this is just given. If you lose this balance ever so, like, so you can lose this balance so easily, and then you could lose so many your position within the global economy very fast. Okay, so it's very important for people to defend these rights and also defend the freedoms and defend the balance, because as you can see right now in the United States, a lot of these rights and democracy and a lot of these freedoms are being challenged. Okay, so it's important to understand that a lot of what you're enjoying today when it comes to higher economic ability to a lot of people around the world and a lot more freedoms than a lot of people around the world, that is right now being challenged again by the Republican Party. Okay, and any American that would understand, that knows a little bit of history, they would be very worried right now, and they would be defending all of these with tooth and nail right now. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry if I get like very still sometimes. Like you have been cutting out really badly for me, but it seems okay on the YouTube, so like I have to just listen really hard to try to hear what you're saying. So if you
Mm.
don't see like a reaction, it's just because I'm trying to like understand the robot that I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
um, okay,
But
so let's
on
go.
YouTube, I'm okay on YouTube, right? Like, let me know on YouTube live chat if
I
I'm
think
okay,
so.
because I think Susie is the one that's being cut. Yeah, okay. Which is weird because I'm having the technical problems.
We both are. So, um, Erkin is asking, do you, Armin, and Susanna have cars? If you do, you need to regularly travel by car, including commuting? Do you think that self-driving? What do you think about self-driving? Would you like to take a vehicle with self-driving retrofit into it, be it owning, renting, or just as a passenger? Um, so I don't own a car. I live in a city where it's actually a major inconvenience to own a car. Um, how do I feel about self-driving? We have at least one or two companies that test self-driving cars here in my city, and they annoy me really badly. So, as like to have them in your city, so far I find them I don't like are very annoying. They have these glitches. They'll end up in all these dead alleys. There will be certain streets where the self-driving cars just congregate because of some glitch, and they just clog an entire street because they all have the same problem. So that's super annoying. Um, how would I feel about being a like being in one of them? I don't know. If I felt more reassured by their safety, then I don't have a problem.
Okay, so I do own a car. I just don't think like it's good to have a car. I think like public transit should the whole world should move into a direction where public transit makes owning a car, obsolete. I think that should be the goal. However, in many cities, we're not even close to that. Self-driving cars, I don't think right now we're there yet for them to. I think self-driving makes a lot more sense right now for trucks rather than cars within cities. I think they're an obvious solution to truck driving, because trucks basically for miles they're just like there's not much navigation that is needed. So there are basically a major remover of fat and waste. Basically, if you get to remove if you are able to, I mean, it's going to be unfortunate for a lot of truck drivers, and I think the government should do a lot more in trying to provide if truck driving gets replaced by self-drivers, automated driving trucks, there's going to be a mass layover in the world, in the US, and these are workers that don't have any alternative. Most of them don't have any alternative skills, so it's going to be very, very difficult to move them from one job to another one, and this might become an absolute disaster. Which I think, given how big of a disaster this is going to be, it's strange that the governments around the world have not, taking a step to mitigate this way ahead of time. I think there needs to be a promotion for truck drivers to be able to find alternative skills, and I think the government should, because this is not something the government is going to be able to control. There's just way too much economic interest for this not to happen, right? At some point, it's going to happen, and the shock that is going to be introduced to the system needs to be somehow absorbed slowly rather than so immediately, because it is hard to adjust when it happens that immediately, right? So it makes a lot of sense for truck drivers. I just don't know a lot about the technology right now to know how close we are for this to make sense for cars within a city. Like I've seen a lot of suggestions that this has been pushed too fast and it doesn't make sense for within the cities, but I've also seen the counter narrative. So I don't have enough technical information to know if this is like if we've been pushing this too fast and technologically we're there or not yet. You know what I mean? Maybe it doesn't make sense, maybe it makes sense. I just know it makes a lot of sense for trucks. So does that make sense?
Yes, you were cutting out at the end for me, but I heard most of it.
Mhm.
Okay, so wait, there's another question. Um, okay, so let's go to a question from Kaz. Kaz is asking, does it make a difference in how a government evaluated public protest between individualistic society or community-based society? Could this be a reason why Hong Kong is such a headache for Beijing? Because Hong Kong has evolved to a much more individualistic society, and Beijing still resides over community group society. Would China then reboot Hong Kong in a groups driven society away from the individualistic society it has become? I'm not sure if I
So I
understood
mean,
this. Does it make a difference
so
in how government evaluated public protest? What does that have to do with the rest? I'm
does it
confused.
make a difference in how a government evaluated public protest between an individual and society? I don't. I think the question is phrased grammatically is not correct, so that's why it's hard to understand. But I think like I think you're suggesting that the rise of individualism in places will make it very difficult to undo the culture of protest within, like, for example, if I think this is very hard to undo. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you open the lid and people are introduced to liberal values, all right, or to individualism, or to having certain rights, introducing, like, trying to introduce turn the clock back and reintroduce them to an idea where they're to a situation where they're okay with having less rights. It takes multiple generations, right? I think, like, but it is possible. I think it's very difficult to do to the people that have already experienced individualism and have already experienced liberalism or a culture of protest. But I think if you try hard enough, their kids will forget it, or their grandchildren will forget it. You know what I mean? And I say that from as somebody who saw how fast people who got introduced and accepted totalitarianism in a country like Iran, right? Like the level of government control that was normalized within just a few years after the revolution was unbelievable. Like the level of government control into personal life and the lack of tolerance for any form of dissent, that it didn't even take one generation. It took like just like less than a decade. It took a decade, right? Where people understood that they don't have the freedoms that they have before. However, just like in Iran, maybe because there is that happened, maybe that's just a temporary fix that a fascist government could do. Maybe because, as you can see in Iran, that was introduced and accepted by society within a decade. But within a decade after that, people show that, yeah, this is not we're not going to just accept this for long. You know what I mean? Like you could see that the long tradition of, I don't know, respecting women, their women's freedoms, women's rights, the demand for a true representative democracy and a culture of protest was living very underneath that cover of silence there was this demand for all of that back and more even, right? um so it may be that, maybe if it may, I don't know if this is true, but I think like it's possible that even if a government is successful at reintroducing people to lack of tolerance for dissent, to removing a culture of protest, to bringing back collectivism, and replacing individualism with collectivism, and obeying tradition, and obeying an unjust rule of law, maybe even if a fascist government is um, able to do that, maybe because society has experienced something else, it will only be able to do that for a couple of decades. You know what I mean? Unless they're so successful at wiping out the memories of it from from an entire population, and to do that, they have to control the children, right? The only way that you could successfully change the identity, and the way an entire society recognizes itself, is to control the children. And that's why all fascists are obsessed with the education system, okay? Including that CCP, the BGP, and the GOP. This is why the GOP also is obsessed with controlling the education system, because they understand that's the only way to completely brainwash an entire society. Anyways, does that make sense?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the live chat, I think the live chat here, I think you're the only one that has. Let me know in the live chat if you heard everything I said.
Yes. Okay, so let's go
Look
to
at this.
another question.
Actually, read this in response to what I just said, because I think this is important
Gay
to what I
American
just
saying the
said.
People's Republic of China parents passed the Tiananmen massacre by word of mouth.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
they
So
tell the
even
story of
yeah. So that's yeah. That's why it's difficult to do that. So, like for example, in Iran, even children who are born not ever experiencing anything other than the Islamic Republic of Iran, for example, they know that things were not like this before. Even if the education system is not introducing them to better times, their parents are, and social media also makes it very difficult for them not to be aware of that. So okay.
Higgs Susan is asking, what's your opinion on Boris Johnson's clear F? Who should be the next prime minister of the UK? I do not follow English politics at all. I just know that everyone has turned their back on Boris, and who should be next, I have no idea.
Yeah, it just, I don't know, like it's just so weird to me how you could not be so more honest with people. Like he was obviously lying, right? So I don't know if people know what happened. Um, he basically lied.
Assume that
He
people don't.
about so he had appointed somebody who had um a man who sexually harassed other men, right? And they asked him. This is the latest controversy that he's been involved in a lot of controversial stuff, right? Um, so he told everybody that they asked him. This came out, and people asked him why did he still appoint the person even though he was a sexual harasser. And I think the guy's name is Pincher, by the way, which is weird, like very ironic, because he basically pinched a whole bunch of other men. I don't know why this happened. But he said he wasn't aware of this allegation against that man. And then when it came about, like, you must have known, and here are the reasons, he can, like, okay, I knew about it but I forgot. So he just comes across as extremely dishonest because
What the hell?
he changed what he said, right?
I both
So
knew about it and did not know that I knew about it at the same time.
it's just so dishonest. But the problem is, like, the UK right now is it's right now, when everything is at stake when it comes to the world liberal order needing its defenders. Some of the most important countries like when it comes to fighting Iran, we have Israel, and when it comes to Europe, we have the UK, right? And thank the devil for the France not falling to the far right people, right? But that was too close, and now Macron is also having issues when it comes to their, their party is losing power as well. But the UK is like completely in mess, and Israel right now their politics is also in complete mess, and the United States could go back to the Republicans, is going back to the Republicans very soon. So it's right when there was the attack on Ukraine, and we needed a. It's good that at that moment when we needed the defense of the world liberal order, everything was in place. You know what I mean? Europe was in the, we had Macron. Germany was good. UK was okay. UK, Boris was really good at making very aggressive defense of Ukraine. So that Boris was really good at that. You know what I mean? Was taking more aggressive stance in defending Ukraine than other countries. And in United States, we had Biden. So Biden is like a really good defender of the world liberal order. But so everything was in good. Everything was in place for us to, for all these countries to do the mostly take the right positions, right? But all of that is now breaking apart. UK is breaking apart. Israel is breaking apart. France, I don't know what the hell is happening. Germany is mostly good. But United States is like the most important player in the game. United States is going to be potentially lost to the side that is again protectionist, is like America's first nonsense, anti-free trade, anti, investing in maintaining the, disorder around the world. So everything is at risk right now. And honestly, I had like a thought that might have been, I think it's not, a lot of people will see as untasteful. And I think like maybe it's just because I think that what is at stake is so important. I you know I know this is a wrong position, so feel free to attack me on this. Like, but I was like, who cares if he appointed somebody who was a sexual harasser? Okay, like let the man stay. I was like having this I thought because Boris was so aggressive when it comes to defending Ukraine, and I was like, does it really matter? Like, okay, like just fire that guy that he hired. Like, why is he? Why are we getting rid of the man over this thing? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Is that a bad thought? I think a lot of people would find that distasteful.
It's not certainly like politically correct, but you're like a consequentialist, so it makes sense. It's not surprising.
Yeah, I just think like there's too much at stake right now in the world. So, I mean, if the man pinched up few other men and like, do we want to throw away the defense team against the world liberal order over that? Like, is that what? Again, I'm not defending the guy. I'm not defending the guy. I'm gonna just fire the guy. But do we? I mean, but I understand that honesty is like such an important part of like. No, like finding that, like being able to prove that a politician has been so obviously lying to people makes it easy to understand why you need to get rid of him. But again, the consequentialist in me, if I wanted to do cost benefit analysis, if it was up to me, I would like, you know what, just let him stay for a little while. I don't know who's going to be the replacement, so I just hope that they are as aggressive as Boris when it comes to taking a stance against Russia and in favor, of liberalism around the world. So I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, is anybody in the live chat is like attacking me over this? Gasian American is saying, is it because he victimized men and not women? No, I actually I would care even less if it was one. No, I'm kidding. I'm not serious. I'm not being serious. I'm not being serious. It's bad. It's bad regardless. Okay, whether it's men or women, this is horrible stuff. I'm just saying the guy that should be punished is the guy who did this. I don't know if the prime minister. I mean, again, the prime minister also did the really, really bad it's really I completely condemn his appointment of somebody that he knew was a sexual molester, and the fact that he lied to people about it. I completely condemn all of that. I just don't know if it's worth like losing the prime minister at this time. It's like I don't know if it makes sense, right? um what is this? Okay, let me see who else is saying disagreeing with me, right? mm, yeah, actually I don't know if I want oxymoron on my side at this point at this time, but apparently he agrees with me. Okay. um okay, cool.
Okay,
Agree.
so
Oh no. I'm kidding, oxymoron. I'm just kidding.
next
Oh,
question
mug.
is
Yeah, go.
next question is from Asian American. It's saying thoughts on Moore versus Harper and the independent legislator theory. I don't know what this theory is, and I know that Moore versus Harper is some case at the Supreme Court, and that's the only thing I know about it. Do you know about this
I don't.
case?
No, I don't know. And because of my computer issues, like usually when we have, and I have a computer, we could just look it up and we'll just learn on stream together, right, about something. But because today I have computer issues, we can't do that. But yeah, so maybe if you really want this question, answer it again, ask it again for the next stream, so that we can, so I have better. Right now we are having technical difficulties, but yeah. So this week we can't answer this.
So next question is from Kaz Lopez. And this is long, so let me pull up the full question. Oh, for the love of God. Okay. So hang with me here, and then I'll give you the breakdown of what this person is actually asking. Kaz is asking, is the obsession with many... Okay, I have to do some editorializing as I talk. Is the obsession that many Muslims have with Israel not just rooted in anti-Semitism? I mean, I don't say that Israel has a good track record with the Palestinians, but they are just obsessed with Israel and Palestinians. It's almost cartoonish. I think that because Israel is looked at as a Jewish entity and the majority of Palestinians are Muslim. I mean, they ignore the plight of black Muslim Darfuris who this century were killed by 300,000. I mean, Hollywood took more concern with them than their own fellow Ummah. Also, the fact that many Muslims ignore oppression and colonialism by Muslim majority countries, like Indonesia against Popeyes, or the Papuais, Algeria's treatment of the Amazigh. I'm aware that Amazigh are majority Muslim. Treatment of Kurds, also majority Muslim, by Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Iraq, or Turkey's occupation of northern Cyprus. Mauritania has huge slavery. Pakistan's treatment of Baluchis, Pashtuns. I mean, it's hard to take them sincerely for their feelings of solidarity with the Palestinians. Now I just see them as a bunch of hypocrites who are butthurt crybabies. So, what this question is getting at is, why is the outrage over some Muslims so selective, particularly with the Israeli-Palestinian issue? And they gave a bunch of examples where there are Muslim populations being persecuted, but inconveniently often by other Muslims. So why is the outrage so selective? Are they hypocrites?
No, they're anti-Semitic, right? So again, but not all of them. Let's not generalize. Okay, there are definitely really good criticisms, very justified criticisms of Israeli politics, right? Israel is a country that is responsible for a lot of human rights violations and a lot of actions that is illegal based on international law, and all of that should be condemned, right? However, this is not in contradiction to the fact that a lot of the attacks on Israel are motivated because of anti-Jewish hatred, right? Both of these are true, right? And that explains to some extent why we don't see the same level of condemnations on a country like China, for example, right? Again, this is not black and white, okay? This is like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. So you have to understand there are many Muslims who are criticizing Israel justifiably, and they're doing that not because they're anti Semitic, but because they're calling out human rights violations. So that is true. And there also are Muslims who are very aggressive at calling, they're not hypocrites, they are very aggressively calling out other human rights violations that are not by Israel. For example, they're done against Muslims or even by on other people, including by things like China that China does, right? So I'm not trying to make an absolute state claim here that these do not exist. Both of these exist. However, it is true at the same time that the fact that we see so much more outrage on a country like Israel compared to a country like China, where it has more human rights violations, astronomically higher amount of human rights violations on people because they're Muslims. The fact that we're seeing it more than in China is because a lot of the attacks on Israel is motivated because of anti-Jewish hatred. Okay, none of these are a contradiction to each other. There are Muslims who are attack Israel, not condemn Israel, not because they hate Jews, and there are a lot of Muslims that do attack countries like China, do condemn countries like China because of what they do. But there's also a major group of people that their main problem with Israel is that is the fact that it's a Jewish country. So I don't know if the problem with a lot of people is that they cannot hold, when you don't make absolute statements and you acknowledge the existence of all of these, because the existence of one to them kind of negates the existence of other. They cannot understand that all of these things exist, okay? Because they see the world in black and white. It's either this or that. So if I say no, both of these exist, one of them is more than the other one, or one of them outweighs the other one, it's just too complicated, and they don't want answers like that. They want to be like, they want to make absolute statements about an entire group of people like Muslims, or Jewish people or Chinese people, and you can't do that. And even I did that right now, right? Because when I say China, I shouldn't say China. I should say the CCP. Or when I say Israel committed human rights violations, well, it wasn't all Israel. It was like certain parties. Like it's just a problem with language, because if I wanted to make these statements accurately all the time, it would just take forever. So we're just lazy. But again, even the statements that I'm making right now would lead to people coming up with absolutist or collectivist conclusions, right? But you just have to be very careful about being more nuanced about these, the way we look at everything, right? Does that make sense?
Okay, let's go to another question by Erican. Erican is asking, what do you think about single-family zoning in the U.S. and Canada? I don't know what this is.
I don't know what this is, but it seems like it's a bad idea. It seems like I'm just guessing that this is going to, what it does is that limits the ability to save space. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like it would basically means that more land has to be dedicated to less people, and it limits people's ability to just save. Sorry, am I back? Okay, to save land by just having more people on and high rises and stuff like that. That's what I'm thinking, but I might be wrong about this, so I'm just gonna guess that. I think right now, when it comes to the trying to make houses more affordable, any limitations on creating, maximizing the amount of utility a space can create, the amount, cramping as many people in space, like high rises and apartment stores and stuff are the best way to reduce the cost of living for people. And at the time that inflation is such a big problem, it seems like this is a bad idea. But again, I'm just guessing. I have no idea if this is the right answer. Does that make sense? So let's just move on, because I don't know if let me see. Asian American saying it was meant to create a family friendly feeling. Okay, so if you want to create, I think, okay, I'm guessing again, that is not the right way to create places where people, living spaces where people enjoy living the most. Okay, you could have high rises instead of having single family houses. You could have big buildings, but you could to make people want to live there and enjoy living there. You have to make the environment walkable. Reduce traffic, increase like park space, um, public transport, a really good public transport. Like you don't have to like have single family houses like uh, in a large area to make it. That actually causes a lot of depression, right? It makes important like fun areas or important areas for people to reach less accessible because everything is just so far apart. Okay, people think like, oh, if you just have single instead of single family houses, if you have big apartments, that makes it depressing. No, it doesn't make it depressing. It actually makes more important and fun places more easily accessible because not everything is so far away. What is important to make places fun to live is park space, good public transports, a lot of walkable areas. Like look at Europe, right? A lot of places in Europe have that. Even in places where they have big apartments, it's just so much fun to just get out. It's easy to walk to the places you want. It's enjoyable. The environment is enjoyable to watch. You don't need single family zoning to be able to do that. So I think it's the wrong way to go. But again, I'm not an expert, so I might be completely wrong about this.
Asian American is asking, what are your thoughts on the Zoo Room mission finding water on Mars? I actually didn't know about this.
Wasn't it? When was this? Because I think I remember a while ago people coming up with the discovery. This is not a new thing, is it? Is this a new thing? Because again, I'm
Uh,
having technical difficulty. I don't know if I could check right now. Because I remember seeing something like this a while back ago. Wasn't this like a while back? Okay, so here's my thoughts on this. If you this is like, if anybody thinks that this means that we're going to find any kind of advanced form of life, that you're dreaming. Okay, the most you could hope for this is like bacterial level life at some point, at some place. That's that's all. Like, I don't know what else to say, right? But if you could ever find conditions for even the most basic form of life somewhere so close. Asian American saying it's more updated knowledge. Okay. But the only thought I have is that if you could find even the most basic form of life in somewhere as close to Earth's neighbor, that would astronomically increases the chances of life, um, in closer areas in the universe. If it's that easy to get life, that you got life on Earth plus its neighbor. Okay, that means that as soon as you have the basic limited conditions, you get life. Okay, and that would mean that the next more advanced life to planet Earth is closer, mathematically closer to us than a lot of us might have thought. That's all I'm gonna say.
so question from Asian American starts with a quote: "Win and you become the child of heaven. Lose and you're merely a rebel." From Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And the real question is, was Washington a terrorist? Here we say terrorist because of the YouTube algorithm. In your opinion, was the American rebellion justified? In your opinion, what is the difference between a terrorist and a freedom fighter? Is it just body counts and inventive atrocities? Oh,
It's time to switch me again. Every time I get disconnected, you have to switch me back to my place, to my rightful place, which is on top.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We're back. Um, okay, so I've never thought about this, but I would say no. What What's the difference between a freedom fighter and a terrorist? I guess it depends on whose side you're on. Yeah, I guess like somebody is a. I'm just gonna say the word because I don't want to say terrorist. Can I say the word? Should I be
Sure,
able
why
to
not?
say the word? I'm gonna. Okay, okay. I guess the difference between being a terrorist or a freedom fighter is whether you agree with the person with the movement. Isn't that fair? Am I being so simplistic about it, or am I being too biased about it? I think like that's the only difference. Because technically, terrorism is any form of violence that is done for political for political gain, for either for any ideological, religious, or political purposes. Any form of violence that is done for the purpose of politics, an ideology, or religion would be terrorism, right? But that also is what freedom fighters are doing, right? So technically, every freedom fighter is also a terrorist. The only difference
I
is
feel like
that
that's simplistic.
I know that's why I was asking. Is that being simplistic? I think the difference is whether you agree with the person or not, whether you think that the movement is justified or not. That's the only difference, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I think to the extent that you primarily target civilians as a means to implement what you want to see.
Not
I think that
really. Even
matters.
not really. If you target politicians or military officials, they call that also terrorist attacks. Like if a bomb goes off and the only victims were, I don't know, military, like a general or something. If it wasn't, oh, here's the thing. It also has to be not at a time of, oh, there we go. Actually, never mind. They're not terrorists, okay? Because if the same attack, if it happens during the time of war, it's not a terrorist attack. Do you know what I mean? It's just an act of war, right? So if it's happening during wartime, they don't consider terrorism. But if it's happening outside of wartime, it's considered terrorism. Again, these are just semantics. So we could probably say no, they were not terrorists because at that time they were at war. It was officially a war, wasn't it? Do you, do you
Well,
have my audio?
there's always a period where it's not a war yet.
Mm-hmm. So I think it depends on when he entered the war, he entered the fight. Okay, if Washington was there when officially the war has not been declared, then during the time where the war has not been declared, he was a terrorist. Okay, but if he joined the fight after it's been officially, like, you're like, yeah, this is war. Officially, this is war. So if Washington joined the fight when officially everybody recognized that this is war, then at no point he was a terrorist because it was happening during wartime. Gagin American is saying, how can you declare a war if your government is illegal? Okay, so at one point do we recognize them as a government? Okay, because you're right, they didn't have any form, they weren't officially a government yet, so it would have all been okay. You're right. So so yeah, Washington technically was a terrorist to the British. Okay, but to us he was a freedom fighter because we agree with his fight. Does that make That's my official position as of right now.
Okay. Um Higgs Boson is asking, what's your opinion on Sadhguru's Save the Oil campaign? I have no idea what this is.
I will look into it.
When you guys
As
answer or ask about very specific stuff like this, it would help if you leave like an example or some context instead of just like, here's this random thing that exists. What do you think?
Well, I mean, this week actually
Some
it's fine to
links
ask
would be
questions.
nice.
No. I think it's fine. This week we're gonna. This is the only time we're having this problem because we have technical issues and I can't check. But usually, I think I'm okay with questions like this because we could just like look it up right on air with each other. But this week I can't look it up. Maybe ask it again for next week.
Okay. Higgs boson. I think the remainder of our questions are all from Higgs boson. Oh wait, no, we have one more from Gation American. Okay. Gation American is asking, should the USA acknowledge the Republic of China, meaning Taiwan, as a sovereign nation and call the PRC's bluff? So Gation American doesn't think that China would actually do something about Taiwan being declared sovereign. He doesn't think they would actually do something. So
You don't want to
if
try it, do you?
the US came out and was like, yeah, so we acknowledge Taiwan, like not expecting China to do anything and like basically see like prove that you're going to do something. What do you think about
What
that?
I think China will do something. The question is not whether or not China would do anything. The question is like, what would China do? Like, would China? I mean, they will react in some way, but would the reaction be a military attack, or the reaction would be like a trade war? The reaction would be not a confrontational war with the U.S., but maybe making U.S. interests or any other Western country's interest in the area challenge it? Like, would it be an attack on U.S. Proxies? Would it be a support of United States enemies? So this is a spectrum of what China could do. Like, I think the spectrum is at one end nothing, and the other end would be full confrontational, direct head-to-head war between China and United States. Okay, that's the spectrum that we're looking at. Okay, and I don't think any of these two ends is possible. I don't think China is not going to do anything, and I also don't think China is, the CCP is stupid enough to enter for two nuclear powers that are so dependent on each other economically to go into direct war with each other. None of these two um, extremes at this end seem likely. Okay, so they are going to do something. They're not going to go to war with the United States. So the question is, where is this going to be? Okay, they are going to do something. At what in the spectrum where the reaction is going to be? How extreme are they going to get? Okay, and I know, and I think that it will be very, the reaction will cause a lot of pain. Okay, how much pain I don't know, but it will cause a lot of pain. Then that's not something that they're gonna just like have a small reaction to. The reaction will be something that economically, um, a lot of people have to pay for it. Militarily, I don't know, but it will be damaging to not to the United States, but to the world, including China itself. Okay, so it will put things like, just imagine Russia attacking Ukraine. Look at the world, like we're having potentially, we're having inflations everywhere. We're having a food crisis, where then the nature of the world liberal order is changing because of it. There are many things about NATO, about EU, about United States place in the world, about Russia's place in the world, about India, about China, about Iran, about Turkey, all of this, about India, all of this is changing so dramatically because of attack on Ukraine, which is, no, I mean, no insult to Ukraine, but Taiwan is even a much bigger deal than Ukraine. Okay, a much bigger deal. Okay, so whatever happens, things will. It's like things will change dramatically globally. It's like a reset on so many things. Which direction this reset is going to be, nobody can guess that. Okay, nobody can understand where things will head if something like this happens. Okay, and unpredictability is like it's an invitation of chaos. Okay, and chaos that will lead to something better or worse. Like, we don't know. You don't want to know. No country that has any good foreign policy would want to enter a game where they are we don't have any clue of what the outcome is going to be. Okay, so I think like United States strategic ambiguity on Taiwan makes absolute sense. It has been working for them very well. Okay, and if you want to be more aggressive in favor of Taiwan against China, you just make that ambiguity a little bit less ambiguous. Okay, you don't get rid of that strategic ambiguity, you just make it a little bit less ambiguous. And Biden has been doing that very cleverly. Okay, it has been Biden has coming in and saying certain things about Taiwan that has pushed the strategic ambiguity side, strategy that the United States having a little bit, pushed it a little bit more towards the Taiwan side. And I think that is like uh, that is proper diplomacy that the Biden administration is doing, in my opinion. Okay, but you don't want to get rid of that. It doesn't make any sense for you to remove your support for Taiwan, but you also don't want to be just like go out for and remove the strategic ambiguity and just go put all your weight. I mean, China is United States most, one of United States like second most important economic partner in the world. You don't poke the dragon. You maybe you want to poke the dragon, you don't want to stab the dragon. Okay, it doesn't make any sense.
Don't stab the dragon. Okay.
Poke the dragon. Poke the dragon. Don't stab the dragon.
Okay.
Okay, Susie's getting disconnected. Is Susie getting cut for me because I'm not saying? Oh, Asian American is saying jerk off the dragon. Okay. Susanna's cut for me. Is she cut for you guys as well? Am I still on? Let me know who's cut, me or Susanna. Yes, Susanna is cut. Okay, so I could do it myself. Okay, here, next question. Okay, Higgs boson is saying, what's your opinion on Sigmund Freud's theory on different stages of development? Don't know much about this, so maybe ask us again next week where I have a computer where I could bring it up and we could read it off together. Oh, Susie might know about this. Susie, do you know much about Sigmund Freud's theory of on different stages of development?
Okay, I got my undergraduate's degree in psychology, there's basically no use in learning anything coming from Freud except to learn about the historical relevance of it. To like learn about
Oh
what he meant to the field. I don't put a lot of weight into anything that comes from Freud. I can appreciate what he's meant as a historical figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Freud's contribution was like, thank you for starting psychology, maybe, but
making
none of your
people like popularizing it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being the father of this field, but literally none of your theories are make any sense. And yeah, you just started it, but other than that, you contributed.
Oh my gosh, wait.
Yeah.
Okay, finally some of my recollections of what his actual stages of development are finally coming back to me. Yeah, no thank you. Erikson, I'll take Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson, like vastly above Sigmund Freud. Yeah. So
I mean, what do you expect?
I think he was just so popular because he gave all his patients cocaine.
I mean, the guy's theory is that everybody wants to sleep with their mom. Every man wants to sleep with their mom, and every girl wants to sleep with their dad. I mean, you can't take a married person like that very seriously. Isn't that his theory? That every single person, every single boy has the fantasy of sleeping with their mom, and every single girl has the fantasy of sleeping with their father.
I don't know if it's every, but it's also it's like a deeply unconscious thing. That's his whole thing. It's like
unconscious fantasy.
You don't know that. You don't know that you want to F your dad. Like
By the way, if that is true, here I will tell people how stupid Freud is. Okay.
Oh boy.
Um, if that is true, how is that only in humans? How come dogs? Because dogs don't have any social pressure. They don't have any social standards, right? For ethics, for like, societal pressure on shame and honor or anything like that. They just do what they want to do. And I don't see. Did you? Do you? Do you think Poochie wants to have sex with her dad? I don't think so. Okay, I don't see dogs committing incest. Okay, that much at least. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. I don't think so. You don't see that, so you know that um, there's a natural block into making that less a natural. Are we back? Are we
Yeah,
back?
I can hear you
Are
now.
we back? Are we back?
Oh my god.
Hello. Okay, okay. Yeah, I think there's a natural evolutionary block that makes us not want to sleep with our siblings or parents. Okay, so Freud was wrong.
Okay. So why is Texas trying to ban oral and anal sex given the abortion laws? Some would prefer anal over cream pies. I'm not familiar with this.
I don't think they are trying. I mean, they haven't yet. I think there is a lot of. Um, I think there is a lot of people are guessing that that's where they're going next because the laws are still on the books, and they're is there actually move towards that? I think that the laws are already on the books there, and nobody has been challenging them because nobody would think that anybody would be able to enforce them given the level of freedom that exists in the United States. But now people are saying that maybe because of the attitude that the Supreme Court has, anything that is literally not spelled out in the Constitution apparently is okay for them to make illegal. People are like, now I guess we could go for these things as well. And I don't think like are they doing that like already, or because everything the conversations that have seen is that it looks they might move to their next but that hasn't been happening yet. Has that happened? I haven't seen any news on it that has
I
happened.
have no idea. I've been so out of it this week. I'm not doing well.
I'm sorry, Susie. Okay, I don't think they're doing that. I don't think they're doing that. I understand that many states in the United States that there's those bans exist and nobody bothered to remove them because nobody has challenged them. Okay, because for you to be able to challenge them, um, somebody needs to be that law first needs to be enforced, and the person that this is being enforced upon, then they could challenge it to a higher court. And because the law is being not has not been enforced, there's no way to challenge this. Okay, the only way that you could remove a law like that from from the states is for you to go and try to get arrested for oral sex or anal sex. Okay, am I back?
Oh, oh,
All right.
hey.
Hey, all right. So the only way for you to remove a law like that is for you to go and try to get arrested for oral sex, right? So because the only way to remove it is for you to get the law to be executed against you, and then you could go challenge it in a higher court. Okay. So part of your activism, if you live in one of these states where they have these laws on the book, part of your activism is to go and try to have as much oral and anal sex as possible so that you eventually get arrested. Okay. I don't know if you will get arrested, but you could do this. You could go get as much blowjobs as possible, right? So that somebody will arrest you at some point. Okay. But imagine that being your job. Imagine trying to get arrested for oral sex. That would be the best job ever, right? Like, okay, like what do I need to do for me, like, I mean, it would be really hard to get arrested for that, because if you do it publicly, then you're getting arrested because you did it in a public area. So how could you do it privately, but at the same time get arrested for it so that you could challenge this law? There are histories of people who try to get arrested for laws that they were trying to challenge in the Supreme Court. So I have, this could be part of someone's activism. Like, go do it. Somebody maybe go try to get arrested for this. Anyways, kind of potato internet do you have over there? I don't know. That's not me. Is my internet bad, or Susie? Susie, do you hear me? Susie? Do you guys have you guys my idea, or is it just Susie's? Okay. All right, so guys, we're having bad internet issues today. Maybe we could answer Higgs boson's questions. You guys have my idea, right? Everything with me is fine. Okay, so I am clear. Susie is like, all right, I'm good. Okay, but I'm gonna answer Higgs boson's final questions in the next stream, because it's really difficult to do this without Susie. So Susie, there we go. I'm good. Susie, do you hear me?
Barely.
Okay, so Susie, let's save Higgs boson's final questions for next stream, because we're having technical difficulties today. Like, you're not feeling well, I'm on my phone, and you're having internet problems all at the same time. So it's like a perfect storm. So let's just save Higgs boson's remaining questions for the next stream. Let's do that, okay?
Okay. I think I
Okay,
that
cool.
right.
Yeah, okay. Sorry guys, sorry about all these issues. We'll make sure to get the next week's questions plus the remaining questions, plus bring YouTube members up. Again, if usually when we're not having so many technical difficulties, this week was usually it's not like this. Okay. At this point, the YouTube members will come on and talk to us live on air. So consider becoming a YouTube member. And again, we're not going to let the Patreon questions, we're not going to let them go to waste. We will answer the remaining ones next week. So consider supporting us by becoming a patron or a YouTube member if you want to come and talk to us live on there. Sorry about the technical difficulties today. Hopefully, we will have less. Usually it's not like this, okay? So I apologize for that. Anyways, please like the video. Please leave a comment after the stream is over. Please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification bell and all of that. Sorry about the issues. Oh, yep, people are being nice. Yep, thank you guys for being supportive in the live chat. Appreciate that. All right, guys, I'm gonna end this here. Bye.